I think we're ready to go. All right, I'll call this meeting to order, the General Government and Finance Committee at 6:03 p.m. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with Section 19.83 and 19.84 Wisconsin statutes in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call. All members are present. With that, we will move to approval of the minutes from March 21st.
Motion to accept.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public comment. Is there anyone here for public comment tonight or anyone online? Ben, you want to comment?
Hands up.
My name is Jan Miller. I'm trustee of Germantown, Village of Germantown. And I had, if I'm correct, there is a new business item, D as in David, and it's called Economic Development Washington County. In my packet, I received an invoice, and I was wondering if there was any attachment to that or explanation for this.
The economic development of Washington County, we support them and we give them this. They invoice us on an annual basis to help them out.
About 10 years.
Oh,
Explain what it is, maybe.
what does it, is it linked to Washington County?
Steve, do you have a good explanation for that? I mean, it's a quasi-organization. It's not a governmental organization.
I understand what it is,
Yeah.
but I didn't see any explanation.
The item that's on the agenda tonight is I did include the invoice. I didn't have time to put together a memo of explanation. I was planning on presenting that orally to the committee here when we got to that agenda item. But it is.
Wait until then?
Once you launch these up there.
Okay.
you're the chair.
Yeah, go.
Chair would, yeah. So I apologize for that, but this is an ongoing relationship that the village has with Economic Development Washington County. Economic Development Washington County is a what I guess I would call a quasi-governmental agency that was spun off from Washington County several years ago. The seed money that goes into their revolving fund that they operate originated with Washington County, and which Washington County does play a role in governance of the organization. They also do provide assistance to municipalities within Washington County on economic development issues, analysis, support in working with companies that are looking to locate within Washington County. And this is the invoice that's attached is for $10,000, which requires committee approval to pay, which is why it's on the agenda this evening, and would continue the same level of services that we've been getting from Economic Development Washington County for the past several years.
So is this just a club subscription? I mean, what do we get for it?
We
What are
do
buying?
we do get a variety of consulting services, and there is I believe it is 4 or 5 different analyses that they will complete at our request of various economic development proposals. For example, if a company looking to locate in Germantown is interested in the availability of workforce in the area, that's the type of thing that they would do. They would also help estimate economic impacts if that's something that the village board was interested in getting. So we do receive sort of a service level package like that. They do offer some other services in addition to that. I believe, if I remember correctly, you said in a presentation they
Yes.
gave on
Mhm.
some different types of management information systems.
Is that
w-
what this is?
No, that would be above and beyond this in terms of the cost for a project like that.
And then what department pays for this?
Um, this comes out of
Matthew has an answer.
Matthew's got the right answer.
Please.
It is paid out of the municipal development budget fund or Department 567. So the same where 4th of July expenditures were traditionally out of, it'd be that department.
Okay, so it's our economic development and we can call them and say, hey, I need a report.
Yep.
Okay. A little more explanation would be great. Maybe there's some other, I'm just saying.
We can ask Christian to come in, give us a
Yes, that would,
45-minute report.
Well, that-
He would be very happy to do that. Yes.
we have to limit him to 10 minutes. And then the next item that I wanted to, I just wanted to be mindful, and Trustee Myers, I'm bringing this up to you. I am on the 4th of July committee, right? And so I thought that Brian would be here. We have coming up, there's a Wolverine, the fireworks is coming up on approval. And yes, I'm okay with that, but just so we're mindful that we're going to go to a 501c3. So I was wondering if we should update this before we submit it. I'm just asking.
I think the idea was that,
Just the funds.
that we were going to sign the contract and get it through the village of Germantown, because we didn't think the 501c3 was going to be up and running in time to create the contract or sign the contract for the fireworks.
I think it's
This
gonna
is
be-
something that's come through Park and Rec for many years, actually.
But that's only part of it. Part of it's coming from the tourism.
It is, which
Yeah.
has already been approved.
Right,
Mhm.
right. So should we ask Brian? I'm just asking.
I guess my recommendation would be in terms of expediency, and it certainly is an option to wait until the 501c3 is formed, until bank accounts are set up. The things that would be necessary to enter into the contract. It would probably be a little bit faster if GGF and the village board approved the contract and it was issued by the village this year. And, potentially in future years, it could go through the 501c3. I'm certainly fine either way. But again, my understanding was that for expediency purposes, the request from the 4th of July committee was that the village enter into the contract so this could get done more quickly and make sure that contract was in place.
And yes, and Brian said that the 501c3 would be done in 2 weeks. So I guess he holds the answer, right? And then, so I thought that I'd bring that to your attention, or just noteworthy. Also, I'm looking at the contracts and agreements in your large agenda packet. It's page 287 and 288. And I just wanted to throw out an example here. Some of this information is a little difficult to read. There's some of the items, you can't tell if there are any cents or any dollars. This one, it's dated the project, until the project is completed in 12/31/23. It's, oh, the one above it, 12/31/22. Maybe maybe it's completed. Rickert and Milky. And there's no amount. So is the purpose for this spreadsheet, Matthew, maybe you know the end? Oh. Do you know?
Yeah, I can answer questions on the spreadsheet. Actually, Ben is the one who developed this,
Oh,
working with the former GGF chair, the former
Okay.
trustee Zabel.
it's the last 2 pages of your agenda. Oh,
So,
it just says list of contracts, agreements by department.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like everything is here, but there's a start date, there should be an end date, there should be an amount. Is it annual? I'm just asking if it could be,
Well, each one has an expiration date, and that's what we
Right,
need to track in order
understood.
to.
but if there
Yes.
isn't if there isn't any dollar amount, does that mean it's completed?
are you, and I think you're referring to the GIS, the Ruckert and Milky GIS contract, is that?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
And that one is a variable dollar amount. It does depend upon the amount of services that are utilized. I could,
Oh.
get some additional information on that, but that's an annual contract. Ruckert and Milky hosts our GIS service for us. But the cost, the overall value of the contract does vary depending upon how much we request in services from that.
I think
So
this
do they-
document was meant for tracking purposes. We still
Sure.
have to approve. When the contract
Oh.
comes up, we'll get new dollar amounts, and then we take action on that.
Okay,
But this is really for tracking the expirations to make sure we don't miss anything.
but it should have a line item number that's associated with the
Well, it
budget.
does once it comes up.
Right,
For
okay.
renewal.
So you can include that. Thanks a lot. That answers my questions for now.
Thank you. Great. Any other public comment? If not, we'll move on to new business. New business item A is CLA Accounting Assistance. And for that, we will talk to, or we'll let.
I'm going to make a motion in regard to it.
Precklow discuss.
I'm going to make a motion to accept this because I understand what they're still going to hear.
Yeah, we should have some discussion, but I hear
Motion should come first.
that's absolutely true.
We're requesting the ability to bring on some accounting assistance from CLA. They're an accounting firm that provides some staffing assistance as well as other services. I believe they're located in Oshkosh to assist with the year-end close process. As the committee knows, last year we had quite a few challenges with completing the close and just with the changeover in staff and some of the deficiencies in the systems that we have. We've been working very closely with Baker Tilly on the types of entries that need to be made in order to facilitate this process. They've identified some backlogs and entries that we need to catch up on. However, Baker Tilly, because their role as an auditor, can't work with us and can't provide those, can't do those entries. They recommended that we reach out to CLA. There is a individual who could provide some assistance in catching up with those, and this would, if approved by the village, by the committee here, this would give us authority up to $15,000 to bring that person on and help with that backlog of entries.
All right, committee.
Motion again to approve new business A.
I'll second it. I'm not totally thrilled with it, but I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion. Yeah, this, Administrator Krecklow and I discussed this. It's really that, it's not that anything was done incorrectly,
Right.
but there's better accounting practices out there, and we need some assistance in getting those book adjustments made. And this CLA would bring the expertise to do that.
Do we have any accountants or CPAs on staff here at all?
We do not,
Okay.
right? I don't think we do.
No one on staff is a CPA.
Trustee Kaminsky.
Out of what budget item, line item is this coming from?
This would be paid for out of the village clerk treasurers.
We have money for that.
There is money available.
Okay.
Yes, Trustee Myers.
The only thing I had mentioned in the past is if we could put that line item in this document someplace where we would know where it's coming from, it would help in the future, please.
That's a good point, and we'll work to add that in the future.
And the other thing is, you did mention $15,000, which wasn't in what was given to us. So thank you for that number.
That should be in the record as well.
And that would be the maximum that we would use.
Just have to go through village board.
No, the committee has authority up to $15,000.
That's why we got a 15.
But may come back. Hopefully it doesn't go over 15. All right, any further discussion on this subject?
The only thing I would say is what Terry had mentioned, if they would put that also in the motion of the 15,000 max, please. Because that's an addition from what was given to us per se.
Good with the second, I assume.
Yes.
Anything else?
No, sir.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, item B. American Rescue Plan Special Reserve Fund.
We do have Matthew Uselding, who's coming up to present this one.
Yeah, so in your packet, there is a resolution to establish a new fund, which will be used to account for the ARPA funds that we receive from the federal government.
Gotcha. So this is just the adoption of a new fund.
Yep. So right now, the funds are currently in our general fund. What we'll do is we'll move them over to a new fund, then it'll be easier to count and track the expenditures that way.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right, motion, any further discussion? Not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Wolverine fireworks contract for 4th of July fireworks.
I'm not going to make the motion. Sorry.
I hear you. So this contract is in the amount not to exceed 18,850 plus the material handling fee of $471.25. The Tourism Commission met and approved the amount of $10,821.25. The balance will come from the recreation budget allocation. Now, this also, this does go through village board as well. So if we want to postpone the approval until the 501c3 is formed, I think it's better to do it there than do it at the committee level.
I would agree with that. It is on the agenda for the village board meeting for this for this evening. And typically we don't have them on both, but again, my understanding was that it was important to get this contract signed and in place. The approval of the 501c3 is not on the village board agenda for this evening, so we would have to ask the village board then to delay that to the next meeting.
How does the fireworks contractor feel about that?
Excuse me?
How would the
I don't think Wolverine, it doesn't matter to Wolverine, you know, we're entering into the contract to accept it. The village would enter into the contract rather than the 501c3 for this year.
so they know we're going with them 100%,
Yes.
whether we approve this right now or not?
And there is some degree of urgency because there is, you know, there's some,
Competition out there.
Well, there's some limitations, yeah, right.
We don't know that.
So at that though, we don't have a motion yet, so I would need a motion to approve.
I'll make
I,
a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion to approve this and forward with a positive recommendation to the village board. Trustee Kaminsky,
How does this compare to last year? I mean, it's the same.
30% higher,
How much?
30% higher.
Okay, for the same display, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
Supply and demand.
further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, item D. We had some discussion already. Economic Development of Washington County invoice for $9,960.
Motion to approve.
I'll second. All right, with that, Trustee Kaminsky.
Just a quick question. I remember vaguely about 8 years, 10 years ago when this started out, it was $5,000, wasn't it? So I guess
I
that's,
don't recall what it was.
It has gone up over the years, Terry.
and we were not the highest community in Washington County by any means.
I don't know how they,
Related to this.
I remember when I was a county supervisor, this coming up as such. That's why I say it's probably at least 10 years ago. But as far as the makeup, how they came up with the funding for each particular community by size wise, I do not know that formula.
What they have gone to this year is a tiered level of membership where based on, there are higher levels. I think there's if I believe, I don't remember the dollar amount for the lower level. The higher level was $15,000, where if there are additional services. This is consistent with what we've been paying and consistent with the level of service that we've been receiving in past years.
Trustee Myers?
Does it go with population size or what you want?
The new system goes with what you want.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And the website is edwc.org. It does have some pretty comprehensive information on there of this for economic development, the quasi-organization.
What it is.
Any other discussion? Motion, right?
It's me.
There's no further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And item E, DPW, shoot, I lost it, sorry, assigned vehicles. This is one that's come back, is that right? We've had some discussion at GGF. There may have been some at Public Works. I can't remember where this started. I guess to get further information, I'll move to Administrator Krecklow and have him give us some background on this.
This was an item that was before the village board a couple of months ago, where there was discussion about assigned vehicles. And most of the discussion focusing on the Public Works Department. However, the policy does apply also to the police chief and the fire chief. And there was a directive to bring this item back to committee for further, more detailed discussion. I did include in the packet a copy of the relevant policies and procedures from the procedure manual. Just a couple of things that I guess I would highlight for discussion. First of all, one is that you know, and I've said this before at the village board and at the committee level, is I do think that this is obviously a very a policy that it's within the purview of the committee and the board to address. I would recommend that the focus of this be whether or not the committee members, the board members, what level of service you're looking for in emergency response and the importance of these positions in terms of of having vehicles in order to provide that level of service. And that's, I think that there's no right or wrong answer to that. I think it's a matter of opinion for the elected officials to make. The other key thing that I would point out is, by the policy and actually by IRS regulation, for these types of vehicles for employees under these conditions, this is not a matter of compensation. It's it is, they're specifically excluded under IRS regulations from being considered compensation. So again, just wanted to point out those two items, and happy to answer any questions that you have.
Trustee Kaminsky?
I'll start. How old is this policy here? This manual yellow that I'm looking at.
I know that it is at least 4.5 years old. This was a policy that was in place when I started. Based on the language in here and the fact that it separates out the buildings, grounds, and parks superintendent and the highway superintendent, I think it goes back several years before that.
I think we need to do a little bit more research on this, because those of us who were on the board, I would say 5 or 6 years ago, we actually negotiated with people who had their vehicles, other than police and fire. I have no question that they need them, okay? Because that's not a problem. But we negotiated with them and we paid them off to take those vehicles back. So they got an increase in their salary to give us the vehicle back. And that's the history I need. Where is that history, and why don't we have it? It's like, I would say 5 or 6 years ago this happened.
And I was not aware of this until the last village board meeting where this was discussed. There was a resolution that was passed. I could have, and I apologize, I didn't put it in the packet, but that is something we can
I think we need
distribute.
that. I think we need that to make intelligent decisions here.
So it was not everyone. It was only the supervisors. The foreman was still allowed to use his vehicle, if I recall.
It was the 3 individuals who were in the superintendent positions at that time.
Right. So the superintendents were the only 3 that were negotiated. It was to give them an increase in pay. There was a superintendent that was, to be blunt, he was looking at other options, and this was a way to retain him.
And we got the vehicles back.
They parked the vehicles at night,
Yes.
and yes. Now, I guess the cleanup for this whole thing did not occur because the policy was never changed. So the policy was never rewritten saying that superintendents need to park their vehicles at night on village property and not take them home. That was never done. So the policy stands, and that's where we're at now.
Okay, my next question is, why does it have to be pickup truck? Because it began to occur to me, being on Public Works for as long as I've been on Public Works now, that we are replacing pickup trucks very frequently, like every 3 years. How much mileage on these trucks is for work within the village, and how much is for commuting back and forth from one's home? How much of our gas, when you see these, when you look through, like we're going to tonight, when we look through our invoices, how much are we paying in fuel for these vehicles to go home? Again, I'm not questioning police and fire, but I am questioning, what is this really costing the village? What is this costing our constituents in their tax dollars? I want to know that. The policy that I thought was in place was police. I mean, it's totally different than what I had thought was on the books, frankly, for a long time. And I think when this comes to village board, you're going to find the same thing for any of us who are on this board in the last 6 or 7 years, that this was a surprise, that this was somewhere where we're letting the vehicles go out. So people got the increase and they got the vehicle. I mean, that doesn't make any good financial sense for us to be managing money for our constituents. So I'm caught up on that. You can see where I'm going with this. I'm not happy about it. But I really would like to know, if they need these vehicles, specifically a pickup truck, why can't they have an economy car if they're going to zip back and forth from home? And then you could carry a toolbox in the back of it. I mean, why does it have to be the pickup truck? if you're going to do this, which I'm not convinced I want to do anyway, I want to see how much it costs us and what the wear and tear on these vehicles is, what mileage, because according to this, it has to be tracked. I mean, that mileage should all be tracked as I read these yellow bars in this document. So let's take a look at what that mileage is and let's figure it out.
I can say that is information that we can provide. One thing that I can answer right now is that under the IRS regulations, and again, these are, the theory behind this is that these are vehicles for responses off hours, and that the IRS does specify the types of vehicles, and an economy car with a toolbox would not qualify under the IRS regulations.
Okay, and then my next question is, if we really feel like it's going to be some huge public works crisis, then why can't we have whoever's on call that week take the vehicle home? Why does it have to be more than one vehicle?
And again, just trying to answer, and again, there's a lot of legitimate positions that the trustees could take on this issue. When I see the positions that are listed here, it does, including the police chief and the fire chief, it's broken out by areas of responsibility. So the highway superintendent is not responding to water main breaks or issues in the water utility. The sewer and wastewater superintendent is not responding to issues with intersections or streetlights or in snow and ice operations. I think that's the reason why you have different positions that are listed.
Well, I wish I could be sold on this better than I'm being sold on it. There were a couple other issues I had with this, but I wanted to see the breakdown, how much this is really costing us.
To table this.
Well, there might be more information. This is just me.
I'm still listening. You still got the floor.
I mean, but this is just me who's asking. I mean, you might have other questions too. And go ahead, because there's another one, but I have to let it surface here.
Bill doesn't have anything.
Chief Delane?
I just wanted to point out something that maybe that's being missed in this whole conversation, and that would be emergency response in case of a catastrophic emergency. And what I mean by that is, let's just say, for example, a tornado hit Germantown and specifically hit Public Works Department. In the fire department, we have some type of a similar policy where if there is a tornado warning or something of the such, we actually respond to the station and pull all the vehicles out and send them to different areas of the village, so that if a emergency were to, or a tornado were to strike the fire station, it would not take out our fleet. I would imagine, and we utilize Public Works as well during those types of emergencies. If they were to have their building struck, that may as well take out their fleet, and these vehicles that are not within the station, or excuse me, within their building at that time, does have some equipment on it that would be utilized for looking through people's houses to see if there's any survivors, if there is any trees or things that are down the road that need to be cleared to get our emergency vehicles through. So they do kind of go hand in hand in an emergency response in case of a catastrophic emergency.
Question for you, Chief.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm envisioning we have to move all the vehicles
Mhm.
because there's a tornado coming. Usually we don't get a lot of notice on that. So if somebody's coming from 15, 20 miles away, what are our chances of really saving those vehicles? And that's one person arriving in a truck.
So I'm
How
not
many vehicles are you
actually,
gonna move?
the purpose of my
Yeah.
point is not necessarily saving the vehicles that are in that building because they're
Okay.
already gone. My point is that if we have, for example, a couple of weeks ago, we did have severe storms that came through. That evening, we had 32 fire responses in that nighttime. Public Works was also out clearing the road for us so we could get through to some of these ambulance calls. And that equipment, some of these supervisors carry on their vehicles that allow us to get through some of these things, or at least clear the way ahead of time as we were going back and forth to these incidences.
And they still have to come back to the village to clear things away, which means they're very close to the Public Works building. I mean, I get what you're saying for that catastrophic,
Yep.
once in a million event. I get it.
I wouldn't
It's
say
all
it's,
hands on deck.
I wouldn't say it's once in a
Okay,
million. I would
twice
say
a
it's probably 2 or 3 times a year.
But that catastrophic event, so the person comes rushing in, he can't do it all himself. You still have to put the call out to get everybody in.
Sure.
So drive your vehicle in, park it, pick up a dump truck or whatever else and get out to the scene. You know, they still have to go to Public Works and get all the equipment.
Well, that's kind of where my point is
One,
that if
people have to get there.
if that building were taken out, those trucks that are not in the building, they are home with those people.
Oh,
Have have that equipment with them to come back and still help us and fulfill some of those duties.
okay. Okay, so we'd have 1 or 2 pickup trucks.
Right, that are
Doing
still
all the work.
available with that equipment to help clear the roads and items like that.
I think, Terry, you talked about the aspect of money-wise and so on. And the compensation was given. I'd like to see some detailed information, research to find out when did that actually happen? What was that amount? And we should have minutes going back to those times to help us.
I tried to find them and I couldn't.
Well,
Quite a few
And
years
so-
ago, I don't remember.
you understand what I'm trying to get, Steve?
Yeah,
Because that's going to help to put
Clarify.
the history
Yeah.
that Bill and I, we don't have any of that. So that's why I want this, I would like this to go to the next
yeah,
meeting,
and
next month's meeting, so we have this and make an intelligent decision in regard to this aspect.
Before we postpone this, I mean, I do have a little bit of information. First off, I met with all 3 superintendents
Okay.
about a month ago or so and discussed this situation and got their perspective on this. Not that they were trying to sway me one way or the other, but just their opinion on the vehicles. First off, this isn't them, this is me, but I view this as a tradesman's vehicle. This isn't a company car. This is a vehicle that's specific to a job. As an example, there's, pavement thermometers in them, right? You can check the road conditions on your way in so that you know how to take action. That's an example. It's no different than a plumber and electrician that's able to take his van home or take his vehicle home. That's really how I viewed this thing, and I always have. That the idea of that we did it for compensation, we did, that was one time. I don't, and probably should have been cleaned up then, that the policy was not. That the policy should have been changed at that point, but now it comes in front of us and we're going to take some action on it in the next few months. Second thing is that when you look around at other community, it's a mixed bag. Some places allow you to, some places don't. So there is no precedence here on this. It's really what we're okay with.
You know who does and who
Opinions
doesn't.
right
We have a
now.
list.
I started going through the list. I don't have a list. There
We
are
find out what
some.
our communities are
It's,
doing.
like I said, it kind of started as, yeah, they do, they don't, they do, they don't, and it was, like I said, just a mixture. We can get specifics, sure, on who does. I don't know if that'll even help in this situation, but we can do that.
Oh, well, it gives an idea in regard to people who are in Washington County, or maybe even in Waukesha or Zaki County, either one.
The other thing is that, when does the workday start then? Do they wait to do any work until they come in and get into the village versus when they leave their driveway with a vehicle? When does the day start then? Is there any liability if they start working in their own vehicle when they leave home? I don't know those answers.
And you're right. It brings up all kinds of different things that I didn't think about as such. And they're important to understand. It's quite obvious that what I had on my phone in regard to somebody running around like crazy with a car and knocked down a pole on the corner of Lannon and Maple, somebody had to come in and cover that. Because it was in the road as such. I didn't know about it until later, but that's just an example. And there's got to be other sides in regard to this. I mean,
Yeah, another example is,
I was in a situation like this as such, and so I want to have all the information, but after working for Milwaukee Public Schools, we took the vehicles home in regard to it as such. We needed to have all that equipment on there. We had 162 schools, and I understand that's not the same here, but we don't have that many people also taking the vehicles home in regard to it as such. But your information, Terry, in regard to, what's the difference in regard to what it costs us in regard to the expenses per se, but there's also the other side. What are we gaining in regard to it that we have to look at it?
We need the whole story. I
Right.
could be convinced.
Yeah. So
I was going to say another example is you've got a meeting the next morning in Delafield, let's say, then you're probably allowed to take it home that time. Well, where do you start and stop? Where does that happen? Do any of the superintendents want to come up and talk?
well, all right.
Good evening. Thanks for just opportunity to speak here a little bit. Just to answer maybe some of the questions that I heard tonight. I did make a couple calls to some neighboring communities just to get a litmus test. Menominee Falls, they have a similar situation. The superintendents take their vehicles home. They're not on the on-call rotation, but they are on the 24-hour if and when needed call. I called someone I know in Mequon, similar situation. We're kind of a little maybe different with our position titles. We're called superintendents there. They're like assistant directors. Again, on call 24/7, not in the on-call rotation. They could come in as needed when needed. The utility I came from in the North Shore, that foreman is afforded a truck, comes in at his discretion. Same thing. Trying to think another utility I called. I think that was about all I called. But just from my perspective, I might be new to Germantown, not new to utilities. I've been 34 years into it, so I have seen quite a few things. And the truck thing has always been kind of a thorn in my flesh because I understand the perspective of the boards that it's public money, public utility funds that fuel this. But again, as I see it from boots on the ground, I always view it as just a tool to do my job. It's a shovel, it's a rake, it's a power lift. And also what I want to just mention is what the truck does for me. And I might not come in once a month. The times when I get called in, it's when it's the worst of the worst. Case in point, I just made a couple notes when the superintendent for me in my position have to come in. It's when the bottom drops out. It's the 5-alarm fire. Case in point, Donges Bay, or Pilgrim Road south of Donges Bay. Water main exploded 3 times. We had to shut down the road. 15 hours later. So I was there on site with the crew. Showed up right to the site, and Trustee Kaminsky mentioned maybe a smaller vehicle. But my truck carries a full complement of tools to take care of these emergencies. We had another one over on Cobbler Lane. That was a 16-inch water main break that exploded. It was a 4-foot high tunnel of water pushing out of the road, and I showed up right on the scene to assist my on-call guy who we had low tower alarms, and time was very relevant. PD had the road shut down, but we had all the sightseers around taking a look at it, and after we shoot them away, we took care of the emergency. We also had another one on Virginia, for Virginia Highlands. It was the assisted living center. That was another low tower alarm situation. Showed up to the scene, and we actually had to have the PD show up to help us search for a leak. And we had to shut down the assisted living center. So you can show up right to the scene to do this kind of stuff. So, again, boots on the ground perspective, it's always been a tool to do my job. And this might sound a little snarky, but it's not rubies and diamonds falling from heaven. Okay, it's a tool to do our jobs. And it can be perspective, or the perspective to me always seems subjective in nature, because it's the people that are on call that are the ones that actually put their lives on hold. And this phone, it never shuts off 24/7. And with that, my life is on hold. It never gets shut off. So when that truck sits in my driveway, it's not a trophy that I can show my neighbors. It's the constant reminder to my wife and family where we have to be, how do we have to get back. So it again, never shuts off. My on-call guys, though, they're on call. They're the ones that were hired to do the on-call on a weekly basis. And I'm hired as the superintendent to manage that. So I think it does bring a value, and you as a board have to decide, is that the insurance you want to have? You know, we can look at all the other utilities, all the other municipalities, what they do, but what's right for Germantown, and what you as a board want to have as those layers of redundancies that are built into place.
Well, question for you. So the on-call guy that changes every week, and that person shows up first, has to go to Public Works Building and pick up a vehicle
Mhm.
with whatever equipment or tools he needs, and he gets to that job site as you're on your way in to supervise. So he's there working, hopefully, by the time you get there,
Hopefully.
depending on where he's coming from.
Correct.
Okay,
I'm 9 miles away, so I'm here in less than 10 minutes.
yeah,
I'm not there to supervise. I'm there to jump in a trench or do
right.
whatever.
But your on-call guy should be there, who's ever on call.
Should be.
And as a supervisor, are you ever on call? Or
I'm
you-
always on call.
But I mean, do you show up at every on-call event?
No, because that's not what I
Oh,
was
that's what I
hired
meant
for.
by on-call.
Yeah, no. So
Okay.
I don't come in for a
Right.
a traffic barricade that fell over. I mean, those kinds of calls, there's
The on-call guy can handle that.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, when I'm called, it's the worst of the worst. It's what costs the village the most. It's what taxes the infrastructure the most, the staff, the residents. So again, from my perspective, it does bring a value to the organization. And if you look at like industries, again, we don't manage private industry, but again, like Trustee Miller mentioned, HVAC contractors, cable TV contractors, underground contractors, they get vehicles to take home because they understand the value that it has to have those tools when you need to show up. You know, and the other thing too is, you know, we're talking about employee retention. That's a big catchphrase these days. And, you know, we're talking about taking tools away to do our job. It's not either or, it's both. I think we should consider those talking points about taking tools away. And if that tool goes away, the superintendents will do what they do best, and that's work around the problem, work through the problem to get the problem taken care of. So again, I'm biased because I've been in this 34 years and I know the value that it brings to a community.
Well said, Paul. Thank you. Committee, I can certainly understand how we started this a couple meetings ago and why some of that was frustrating and confusing for everybody. I guess for myself, the points I'd like to make is I truly do look at it as a tool to do my job. You know, I'm always happy to answer questions about how our operation works and how our on-call people are here and what we're here to do to support them. I think for myself, sheer volume, whether it's chemicals overfeeding at the splash pad or an HVAC issue at the library or a fire suppression system leaking at the fire station or a windstorm when Tim Zimmerman and Peter Lader and I are running around clearing neighborhoods. You know, hey, this neighborhood doesn't have trees down and we're moving our crew around. We do work together and we do use it as a tool. Trustee Miller, you hit the nail on the head with the coming in. As I come in the morning for a snow event, I'm watching pavement temperature when I'm in shaded areas, open areas, over bridge decks. It's helping me formulate the plan that we're going to use for the day. And so it truly is a tool. Yes, there are scenarios, a down stop sign. I'm not coming in for that. Our staff is more than capable of handling that. But I would like to tell you a story that I'm proud of from the weekend. Last summer, one of our operators came for a signalized intersection that was in flash mode, and he was at his wit's end. And I came in and I met him on scene. Again, I could arrive right to the scene, met him. We worked through this scenario. This Saturday, we actually had 2 knockdowns this weekend, one on Landon and Mequon, one on Squire and Mequon. And that same operator was on call this week, and he was working through problems. I was on the phone with each of these guys both times. And I'm proud to say that because of the effort that we put in, I was ready to get in my truck Saturday evening and meet them again. But because of the things that he learned last year when we were together, he was able to solve that problem on his own. So after several phone conversations, they got it. And I think that's the thing for me I look at the effort that we continue to put into training our people and being there as a support for them. And this truck can be, again, it could be, I don't want to mistake the fact that somebody could look at it and say, well, you're taking that to and from work every day. That's absolutely true. And I would never try to talk differently about that because that is true. But it truly is a tool for us to do our jobs. And I think that's the only thing that I'd like everybody to think about as we're talking about it. And we truly do use it as a tool. So that's all I really have.
Trustee Myers?
Your department is larger than the other ones, is that correct? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Your department is larger than the other ones, correct?
I would think that there's more volume in our department potentially, yes.
Do you have more than one vehicle?
We did. Peter was taking a vehicle home.
Okay. And his title is, if I remember, because we changed that.
His title was Highways, Parks, Buildings and Grounds Foreman.
Okay, thank you.
And for those that don't know, I'm sure some people have heard Peter has left our organization.
You what?
Peter has left our organization. He took a job in another community.
All right, thank you.
Anything else?
Tim?
Tim, you want to talk? Got to get all three of you.
I certainly echo the sentiments of Paul and Scott. I've been doing this for 20 years, taking a truck home. I just want a decision made from you guys, whether it continues or it doesn't, because I'm kind of getting sick of the tail wagging the dog. Examples of when I've been called in by the police department. I've been called in personally by the fire chief. I've helped clear roads for the fire department on my own accord. My power was out at my house. I had 4 lift stations without power. The village was in crisis. Nobody called me in. I came in. Police needed help on Country Air Drive. I rerouted traffic. You know, that's what we do. That's the nature of the job for us. It doesn't cost the village anything for me to take a truck home. I live here. And if I don't take the truck home, I park it less than 300 yards from my house at a public building. So there is not a monetary value for this superintendent. I don't feel there's a monetary value for those 2 superintendents either, because it is a tool for us to do the best job we can for this community. None of us are gaining anything personal by having them. You want to come by my driveway on a weekend when my kids are home from college? I got 8 vehicles. I certainly don't need another. Okay. Like everybody said, it's a tool for us to do the best job we can for the village. We're not asking to add more trucks going home. Just want to kind of keep the ones we have. The fire chief and the police chief do not come in on every traffic incident that happens or every fire, but when it's the big one, they're here. It's the same thing with us. We're not here for every on-call situation. That's what our hourly people are for. That's what they get compensated for. But when it's the big one, we come in. When it's Country Inn and Suites as a sewer backup because somebody directionally drilled through their sewer line, that call came to Tim Zimmerman, not my on-call guy. I was there on scene within 5 minutes of getting that phone call. That's just the way it is. But I just would like to have a decision one way or another so that moving forward, this isn't constantly brought up every 2, 3, 4 years and discussed again and again and again, and nothing ever gets resolved.
I agree with that. And this will be cleaned up one way or the other.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
There was some discussion about getting some information, some dollar amounts from Steve. Do we want to postpone this and some history? Do we want to postpone this?
I'll make a motion to postpone until our next meeting.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to postpone.
Just an additional thing, if I could, Mr. Chairman. Find out in regard to this, this amount of money was given to them. Was that a one-time deal? And how much, please?
Yes, I can. So the things that I've got, I'll get the resolution and the information included in that to the committee. We'll get mileage and fuel estimates, and we'll get some information from some other municipalities in the area and what they do with their policies.
And then how often these pickups get changed over to a new one?
Yes. Yeah, we could talk about the replacement cycle on the pickups.
Thank you.
Question.
Yeah, Trustee Kaminsky.
This is for for Steve. So at this point, are we thinking of limiting the vehicles to the people we have in this room? That's going to be one supervisor for each department and the chiefs.
This actually came up again because the water department was requesting an additional
That's what's
vehicle for the foreman, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever we call them now.
never even come up.
Again, I think that really is a decision for the committee to take a look at. I think that one of the reasons that the foreman in the water utility came up is because the Peter Leitner did take a vehicle home. But he's no longer with the village. And as we go through the hiring process, that would be, that would be a time to take a look at that policy.
I guess the only thing I would say in regard to it, if the policy was there that he was using the vehicle from before, in my own mind, I wouldn't want to change it if we go that route.
The public works foreman was able, that was in our procedures. The water department was a newer position.
Okay. Well, you pose a good question. How many people and how many vehicles are we talking about? Because that's important. That way we get this whole thing done at one time.
Do we have a motion to postpone any further discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, unfinished business, American Rescue Plan funding, village employees.
Okay, so this came before you guys once before, and now it's being brought to you with the specifics of how much would go to each person if approved. This is to thank our employees who have been working throughout this COVID pandemic. At first it was just for full-time, and now we've extended it to those who worked different hours. We have them in 4 different tiers. The park and rec director and the library director got together and created this list. And so they're confident that this list is good for their employees. And then the election group as well is at the very end. So I don't know if there's any questions.
Trustee Kaminsky.
But you basically took the $250,000 and split it the way you wanted it to go, correct?
Well, it's actually under 250, so it actually
That's
comes.
the max of.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so this is your best thinking and Steve's best thinking, then I'm comfortable with it because we don't know the employees like you do, obviously.
And just to clarify, it does give, and that this was really at the direction of the village board, full-time employees, $1,500. What we did is we added in for employees who are less than full-time that they would gain something. And that's where Aaron's analysis with the department heads came up with that kind of tiered system there.
I think that's.
Go ahead.
And the total then comes to 228.50.
What was that total?
228.50.
Thank you.
Committee?
Mr. Chairman,
Approve as presented.
I'll say something, but go ahead and make a second.
Then I'll make the second and then let Bill talk.
All
about
right.
it.
Trustee Nyrider.
I've looked this over and I still have a problem with it, to be real honest with you. We're talking, what, about 10% of the ARPA funds. And I tried to Google today to see what other communities were doing this. I could not find any. I'm sure there are some that are doing that. But I go back more so to frontline workers and who are defined as the frontline workers. And I feel those are the ones that should get a significant amount. The part-time, when you're going 5 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, that to me just, and then even the poll workers, that to me, how we've split this out just doesn't really make sense to me. I have to be real honest with you. I'm not saying that nobody else deserves This is a bonus is what it is. But there are a lot of people that worked during this time and are not getting paid extra for it. And I certainly appreciate the time and the effort that all the employees made here to keep the village hall open and keep all our other services open or whatever. But I still think we need to better define who the frontline workers are and put a significant amount there. And then if you want to go from, full-time people in various positions inside the village hall here and other area library, et cetera, okay. But I just personally don't like this breakout.
If I could, I'd just like to provide some information on that, and for the public listening as well. Village Hall never shut down during COVID. It was open even when most other places were shut down. There are some, as far as the part-time staff that are included in here. For example, the library. Now, the library did shut down, but they continued to operate and provided a lot of services to people in some pretty challenging circumstances. A lot of the other part-time employees were people in like the Kids Club program, for example, who, through all of COVID were coming in and providing daycare services for Germantown residents, and I think really worked through a lot of challenges. I can't imagine taking responsibility for that with 30 kids, but much less all of the things where the kids were masked and you had the additional the instructors were masked and taking on all of the additional sanitary responsibilities. The election workers, a lot of those poll workers who came in were people who are elderly and at some of the highest risk and came in. And I remember the election that we had over at the high school and people who came in and did that. And I think that's the rationale that, as there are a lot of frontline, I think a lot of the people, most of the people in the village, really for much or all of this, we're frontline workers and dealing with the public, having those interactions, working through all of the different guidelines and challenges that we had. And I guess that's why we presented what we did.
Trustee Kaminsky.
I see both sides of it. I see your side. But I have to say, I do agree with what the village is trying to do here. I mean, if my company was able to come up with a pot of money and offer it to me, I would kind of like to have had a bonus because I certainly went to work every day too. But that's not the case, but it is the case here with Washington County's giving us this option. And I think it's a good option because especially, I mean, I take some of the arguments that we're hearing from that podium 15 minutes ago. Now when the tree goes down on the street, now when the tornado goes through, I mean, if everybody's staying home and nobody wants to work because they're afraid of COVID, then we have virtually no village services. So I think this is money well spent. In fact, I would like to ask, what about people who may have worked a good portion of the year during COVID? I mean, are we going to try to go back and just do some type of, maybe not the 1,500 or what, but some type of bonus to those people that worked here during that 2020 time?
That's what this list has included.
It has included those people?
Except for people who are no longer employed here, but for like all the summer helper or
But
like
if
the
they did
summer
work here, even if they're
part-time.
no longer employed here, weren't they still on the front line when they were here?
That is a good point, and those people who have left employment with the village are not included on this.
Okay,
That is something we could go back. We could,
okay.
we could.
No, I mean, I don't like that from over here. That's okay. I just thought I'd throw it out there, okay, just to see what your thoughts were.
I think again, the argument, and there's always good arguments on multiple sides of issues, but the argument for not including him is that the village board did relate this to the retention goal that was set up as part of the rationale for doing this in order to retain employees and express the thank you of the village through this through this payment, but, and for employees who are no longer working here.
What about retirement though? Because that's more of a normal thing.
And again, we could do that. It's not included in here, but we could go back. There are not a large number of employees who retired. We're talking probably, I don't know, 8 to 12 maybe that retired during this time period.
Just a thought. I mean, because they,
I like that.
because retirement's different than quitting. Quitting, you've cut the ties and you've moved on. But just a thought, maybe just to take a look at it. And I'm not saying it has to be a huge, the 1,500, but it should be maybe something. I don't know. I just, that's.
There's a little bit of left from the allocated amount.
Aaron doesn't, sorry.
We could take a look at that, come up with how many people and some numbers for when this gets to the village board.
And yeah, I was gonna say, it's up to you. Whatever, I defer to whatever you think, because there's a lot of work went into this, and I know it did. And I think it's the right thing to do, so,
Thank you.
We have a motion.
yeah, we have motions.
So this is going to go through the village board anyway, and will get discussed at that level. Any further questions, comments? Not all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 3-1. All right, with that, we will move on to reports. Monthly financial summary, the year-to-date revenue and expense reports. Are there any questions or comments about that? Get through these quick.
No, I,
Accounts payable, we have six accounts payables.
the 5.
Five. March 18th, March 25th, April 1, April 8th, April 14th. Any comments or questions on that?
No.
Contract report. This is one that trustee Jan Miller was asking about. And like I said, this is really just a guideline of what things are coming due so that we know that we have to renew or take action on those and approximately what the cost is. And we still have to approve each and every one of these.
I would ask Steve, can I ask Steve, any changes in here that we should be aware of?
Actually, this is there's not much on this particular report that's different. This is a time of year that
Most of them come at the end of the year.
most of them come in. The ones that are new are under the sections approved by boards and committees. So you can see those at the top. Those are some of the newer items. But other than that, not much additional to point out to the committee.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anything else? If not, we will do the capital data IT report update. Is Aaron doing this or is?
Hi, this is Eric. I joined over
Eric
the
is
phone
here.
today.
Okay.
Sorry, I have a sick kid at home and it's been a little bit of a beautiful time. So apologies to all the trustees and everybody present that I wasn't able to make it in person today.
No problem. Eric, go ahead, but we'd like your brief summary this time. We're running a little bit late.
No worries. I honestly, I could say that for the report that you have on your hands, and probably is displayed, probably the first 7 pages could be skipped. It is for your own, it is a report that I put together, for having data given to you for accountability. So there's history of things that, of the environment. Much of it is status quo. A lot of it is pending investments that already has been authorized by the board and the committee itself, like the ProPhoenix project and the project for the backups. So once I see that a lot of the hardware associated with those projects are due to ship out in May, so we have a good amount of a good amount of time still in order to get them. Probably a lot of those projects, the hardware will be arriving sometime in June. So that's or end of May or beginning of June. So that's when we're expecting them. The biggest part of my report is probably the accomplishments area in the slide 8. Those are the accomplishments that we have so far done in March. We've been able to migrate almost all the village and all the workers to the Exchange Online, which is the email in the cloud. I believe that the trustees just started getting migrated not too long ago. And we have just some pending stragglers with the DPW, which are looking to get resolved, and the fire department as well as cutting over the police department completely. Those are already in the works. And today we had a meeting this morning where we've been discussing scheduling and strategy to move forward with the completion of that project. We did have to decommission a server that went down, but we were able to do that transparently to the village. So that was the server where all the engineering data was there. Most of the park and rec information also was there in that server. So we were able to swing that all those virtual servers to another part of the infrastructure in Village Hall. All that was done without any type of outages or any issues, and it was totally transparent. We've been helping the village sort out some little situations with Spectrum as well. We recently were able to have them replace our the cable modem that feeds the internet into Village Hall that was causing outages kind of weekly, where internet would just freeze during the day, and that would cause situations in there. We discovered that was faulty, and we were able to get Spectrum to replace that. Now we're working with Aaron and Spectrum to seek better speeds, because I think that there's some additional circuits that are being paid for that are only being used during this transmission, which could also benefit the rest of Village Hall and stabilize a little bit more and get a better experience. We're also assisting effortlessly the migration to Tyler, the accounting suite that was recently commissioned to replace the one in the Village Hall. So we're assisting them with any type of access, data conversion, and also the configuration with the Cloud Federation and identities and security. We had some extra wins, you could say, with in the networking side. We've revamped the VPN. We've made it a little bit more secure. We also eliminated the need of an unnecessary software that comes with the firewall that was also running in a that was running out of support for the newest versions of Windows 10. So that was causing a ceiling. So we got rid of that. We established already monitoring across Village Hall to all the infrastructure. That includes the fire department and PD and DPW and all the other sites. So we're now getting alerts and proactive alerts when things go down. If something is having a problem, we now know about it in a timely fashion. And we continue to partner with different departments. Like I state there with the police department, we recently did a little workshop where we created efficiencies in the way that officers in the field transmit data to the case officers back in the police station, and that they're able to document those the pictures that they take outside with their phones that are assigned to the squad cars. They're able to quickly transmit it over, and the communications officer are able to import them into ProPhoenix. Any questions? Otherwise, I'll just keep on going.
Yeah, keep going.
Okay, so in page 9, we're starting to see a lot better picture than what we've seen before. We've had a lot better handling of tickets. There are still, we have, as of the last month, we still have some 4 pending tickets. As you see there, a lot of them are more requests that are coming in. So those are just orders and things like that, more than break fix. But we're able to start showing more value in completing aggressively the tickets that are coming in, and we're working also with Aaron to better that workflow and to make sure that the village gets a lot better handling and response to all the tickets. So now that a lot of the bigger parts of the projects have the bigger items that we were ripping the band-aids have gone away, we're starting to see a little bit more of a stability and more day-to-day just common requests versus having to deal with a lot of break fix, which is really good, and that's what we were expecting. Page 10 is just an accountability to show you how we're still utilizing our hours. We're a little bit overcommitted, and much of it is because of the projects that we've done. A lot of it that you see in especially On the infrastructure retainer side, it's hours that were spent migrating servers and also in the projects. But as you see, there's been a decline in service desk requests. So we're revamping the infrastructure and we're making it stable. We're making sure that things are where they're supposed to be. But we're starting to see the benefit in the decline of service requests being submitted. Then my last page is page 11. This is just an update of our project portfolio, things that we have in flight, things that we have completed, and things that were going on. One of the biggest ones was RecTrack. We do recognize that the website was out with an expired certificate for some time. There was a lot of, you could say, technical debt, like we like to call it, associated with that. So we were able to improve it. It took some time, but we thank everybody for the patience on while we were doing it. But we were able to bring it up to a supported model and to a way that we could now work with it and better it later on in the future. But other than that, we're pending to do some updates with the RecTrack software itself, not the website. We're coordinating that with the Office of Park and Rec, and we just are pending right now on the backup replacement on the Profinec project tied to those devices that I was talking earlier. And we are going to be starting our EMS project, which is the project that is aimed to secure all the desktops. Here's where we go, and now we're going to be touching all the desktops, assigning policies, hardening the security, making sure that it has the appropriate antivirus and the appropriate defense mechanisms to safeguard the village's information. So that is starting later this week. So we're hoping to have that completed in record time there, that most of all that needs to be done does not require actual manual user intervention. Many of it is going to be done in the background behind the scenes without disturbing the users. That was my last slide that matters. The last two are just a thank you and just a reminder of our SLA. So any questions from the trustees or anybody in the public?
Great, thank you. We do have one question, Trustee Myers.
Eric, Dennis here. In regard to the
Yes,
parts
Dennis.
that yes, the parts that you talked about that you ordered as such, were there any particular ones that you weren't able to get that you
No,
needed?
we're able to order everything. So all the orders, everything that was quoted was successfully ordered, and everything is being successfully processed by the manufacturers. The situation that we have is that the industry lead times.
Yeah, the only reason why I mention it is because it's a lot of stuff people can't get right now, and I was curious if that you were able to get. And thank you for that
Oh no,
information.
we were able to get it, but it's with a delay.
Delay is fine, but delay of a year, not good. But thank you.
Hopefully, like I said, we up to now, the last information we got is that it's going to be shipping. They don't have a specific date, but they say that May is going to be. So it's anytime within the 30 days or 31st days of May. But we should have, whenever we receive an update, I'll make sure to communicate it to Aaron and Steve and make sure that that information gets over to you guys as soon as possible.
Good. Thank you. Any other questions? Great. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have a great night, everyone.
All right, that was our last item on our agenda. With that, we'll schedule our next meeting, which would be Monday, May 16th in the boardroom. Is that okay with all the committee members? Good, so we'll schedule it for Monday, May 16th. And just prior to me adjourning here, we do have a special public safety meeting right after this before the village board. Is that correct? Okay. All right. So with that, we will adjourn and we will go to the special public safety meeting.